The devastating British revolt against Rome, 60 AD, Boudica's revenge. In the rolling green hills of ancient Britain, whispers of rebellion began to stir. It was a time when the dominance of Rome cast a significant shadow, and freedom for the Celtic tribes seemed like a distant hope. The year was 60 AD, marked by clashes of swords and the cries of those oppressed. While Rome appeared to control Britain, an undercurrent of resistance was growing, poised to challenge the empire's hold on the misty land. At the center of this brewing storm was Boudica, a leader whose name would resonate through time, a symbol of defiance against tyranny. Her uprising wasn't merely a brief revolution, it was a passionate declaration, a fight for the very essence of a nation. But then, her story is intertwined with betrayal, anger, and an unwavering mission for justice. So without further ado, let's explore this wild era, unveiling the events that paved the way for one of history's most legendary uprisings, Boudica's revenge. The Roman conquest of Britain. The story of Roman Britain begins in a time when the world was a vast mosaic of empires and tribes, each carving out their own slice of history. In 43 AD, the Roman Empire, a colossal force in the ancient world, turned its gaze towards a mist-shrouded island at the edge of its known world, Britain. This was not a sudden impulse. Julius Caesar had ventured here a century earlier, but it was under Emperor Claudius that the full might of Rome came crashing onto British shores. The disciplined and battle-tested Roman legions advanced with a blend of military precision and unwavering resolve. Towns and kingdoms succumbed to their might as the Roman war machine pressed deeper into the heart of Britain. Yet this was more than a mere military campaign. It marked the onset of a nuanced and often tense relationship between the conquerors and the conquered. Among the myriad of tribes in Britain, the Iceni, of what is now eastern England, had a unique standing. Initially, they were not directly under Roman rule. Instead, they were allies, a status that granted them some degree of autonomy. This relationship was a delicate balance of power and diplomacy, a dance between independence and defeat. The Iceni were led by Prasutagus, a king who sought to secure his kingdom's future through a will that was bequeathed jointly to his daughters under Boudica and the Roman emperor. It was a move meant to ensure peace after his death, a bridge between two worlds. However, the reality that followed was far from what he had hoped. Seeing an opportunity, the Romans disregarded his will, annexing his kingdom and treating the Iceni as conquered people. This act of betrayal and disrespect sowed the seeds of discontent, igniting a flame that would soon grow into a raging hell on earth of rebellion. Boudica, Queen of the Iceni. As the dust settled on the Roman annexation of the Iceni kingdom, a new chapter began with Boudica, the wife of the late King Prasutagus. Now a widow, Boudica found herself at the forefront of a brewing storm. Her role surpassed that of a queen. She became the expression of her tribe's struggle and resistance. The Iceni tribe, known for their fierce independence, was thrust into turmoil. In this period of uncertainty and change, Boudica's resolve hardened. Her transformation from a queen to a rebellion leader was fueled by the injustices inflicted upon her family and her people. Boudica was flogged, and her daughters were subjected to unspeakable evils. These acts of cruelty were not only violations of personal dignity, but also symbolic of the Roman disregard for the customs and rights of the tribes they conquered. The mistreatment of Boudica and her daughters, coupled with the Roman annexation of Iceni territory, ignited a flame of rebellion that had been smoldering under the surface. The Iceni, known for their fierce independence, could no longer stand lazily. The Roman actions had crossed a line, transforming what was once a relationship of uneasy alliance into one of open hostility. The stage was now set for Boudica to emerge not just as a queen wronged, but as a rebellion leader who would shake the foundations of Roman rule in Britain. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and its flames would soon engulf the Roman presence in this corner of the empire. The fury unleashed. The tribes, united under Boudica's leadership, were a formidable force fueled by a deep-seated resentment against Roman rule. The first target of this unleashed fury was Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester, a symbol of Roman occupation and a colony for Roman veterans. These veterans had been accused of mistreating the local population, adding to the growing discontent. The attack on Camulodunum was not just a military action, it was a statement, a direct challenge to Roman authority, and a message to the oppressed. The city, with its temple dedicated to Emperor Claudius, was razed, its people facing the wrath of the rebels. The rebellion's next moves were even more audacious. Londinium, London, and Verulamium, St. Albans, soon faced the same fate. These cities, bustling centers of Roman administration and commerce, were engulfed in flames. The scale of destruction was immense, with ancient sources describing a level of brutality that was both shocking and indicative of the depth of anger felt by the rebels. This was more than just a military campaign. It was a statement of defiance, a cry for freedom that resonated across the island. The Roman response. As the rebellion led by Boudica gained momentum, the Roman governor of Britain, Gaius Suetonius Paulinius, found himself in a precarious situation. Paulinius, a seasoned military leader, was initially occupied in a campaign against the island of Mona, modern Angelici, a stronghold of the Druids and a refuge for British rebels. While significant, this campaign left him momentarily distracted from the brewing storm in the province's heart. The news of the uprising, especially the capture of Camulodunum, Londinium, and Verulamium, hit the Roman administration like a thunderbolt. The magnitude and intensity of the assaults were unparalleled, presenting an enormous challenge. Understanding the gravity of the crisis, Paulinius realized that a rapid and resolute reaction was vital to suppress the rebellion and reinstate Roman control. The barriers confronting the Romans weren't solely in the sheer numbers and fierceness of the rebels, but also in the logistical complexities of swiftly mobilizing a counterforce. Roman forces in Britain were spread thin and engaged in various military and administrative tasks. Gathering a force capable of confronting Boudica's army required not only time, but also strategic skills. Paulinius had to carefully choose his battles, avoiding direct confrontation until he could amass a force capable of turning the tide. Despite the initial setbacks and the widespread nature of their rebellion, Paulinius managed to rally his troops, drawing from various outposts and garrisons across the province. His strategy was to concentrate his forces, creating a legion that could match the intensity and scale of the rebellion. The decisive battle. The final confrontation between Boudica's rebel army and the Roman legions was a moment that would define the future of Britain. It was here, in 60 or 61 AD, that the fate of Roman rule in Britain hung in the balance. Gaius Suetonius Paulinius, understanding the gravity of the situation, meticulously planned his strategy. Despite being vastly outnumbered, with estimates suggesting Boudica's forces numbered between 120 and 230,000, the Romans were determined to leverage their superior discipline and tactical prowess. Paulinius chose his battleground carefully, selecting a position that restricted the Britons' ability to surround his forces, likely a narrow gorge with a forest behind him, minimizing the risk of being outflanked. The Boudica's army, fueled by a desire for revenge and liberation, were a mix of various tribes, united under the banner of rebellion, but lacking the disciplined structure of the Roman military. The Romans, on the other hand, were a well-drilled machine. Their formations, tight and disciplined, absorbed the initial onslaught of the Britons. The battle soon turned in favor of the Romans. The Roman soldiers, armed with short swords and protected by shields and armor, were well prepared for close combat. In contrast, the Britons, though brave and numerous, were gradually overwhelmed by the disciplined Roman tactics. Aftermath and legacy. The aftermath of the decisive clash with the Romans marked the conclusion of Boudica's rebellion, but the destiny of Boudica herself remains somewhat of a mystery. However, Boudica's legacy goes beyond immediate political changes. Over time, she has evolved into a symbol of resistance and national identity in Britain. Her narrative, one of brave resistance and a quest for justice, resonates across generations. In British history and culture, Boudica is revered as a heroine, a formidable figure who stood against the power of Rome. The legend is immortalized in art, literature, and folklore, often depicted as a representation of Britain itself. Resilient, proud, and unyielding, her legacy persists.